So this last weekend, I had a major epiphany. We road tripped up to the Chrysler Nationals in Carlisle. We made a few trips up north. By the way, our carry van box truck made the 2,000-mile round trip. Didn't skip a beat, didn't burn a drop of oil. Good to go. But anyway, we ran up to the Chrysler Nationals in Carlisle. And we went to look for a few parts for Project Bottle Rocket. And, just to see what was going on in general as a stop on the way to another location. But anyway, make a long story short, while I was there, we met a bunch of you guys, and really, it was great meeting all of you. Thanks for the recognition, I really appreciate it. But one of you guys said something that planted something in my head, and I was like, oh my God, things make sense. All of a sudden it makes sense. And I'll tell you what it is, right? So, the new wave of muscle cars, all of the stuff that's been happening over the last, let's say 15 years, 12 to 15 years, it's amazing. The cars are fast. Never before, in the 60s you had a big variety, but never before really have you had so many ways to go so fast, right? But for some reason, I'm not interested. Like, I want to be interested. I want to be excited when they come up with a new package car or a new package engine or a crate engine but it's just not in me. I can't get stoked about it. Like I remember when the Demon came out and I was like, wow, 9-second production car, and I watched the introduction videos and I was like stoked about it, and I was like, this is amazing stuff. But then like immediately afterwards, like I really didn't care. Like I didn't have any desire to go see a Demon. I didn't really care to go watch one run at the track. It just doesn't do anything for me. And I couldn't understand why it doesn't do anything for me until Carlisle. And I'll tell you what happened, right? This year, they had a huge turnout of late model cars, mostly Challengers, right? But there were countless, hundreds of them. And they had their own kind of separate field, and there was a lot of activity in the field. There were a lot of people, set up the tents, and it was cool. It was nice. It was, and then you had the more traditional Mopar stuff, on the one end. So as we're walking through the swap meet, it was kind of like Groundhog's Day for me. You ever seen a movie with Bill Murray, Groundhog's Day, where he keeps living the same day over and over again? Well, I've been going to Mopar, and not just Mopar, but I've been going to swap meets for 40 years. I've been going to swap meets and hunting cars and parts and things since the cars that we consider to be classic today were still in common use. Kind of like, Challengers, the modern ones. So, as I'm going through the field, there's this huge turnout of late model cars, but in the swap meet section, it's nothing but old cars, old parts. And for me, it was like Groundhog's Day, because I'm walking through, looking at, fenders and transmissions and rear ends and project cars and so on and so forth. And they're exactly the same parts and exactly the same situation that I saw 40 years ago. The prices have changed, right? But there was still, it was my old stomping ground. It never changes. And, there's a little bit of a comfort in that. But then this one guy that we talked to, he says, I wonder why there's no late model stuff in the swap meet area. And, and then I started looking around. And there isn't any late model stuff in the swap. There was nothing. Like, I'm looking around now and I'm saying, well, okay, so where are the rear ends? Where's the transmissions? Where's the engine blocks? Where are the cylinder heads? Where's the interior parts? Where's the nose? Where are the partially stripped parts cars? Where are the outdated race cars, sitting up on trailers, 1,500 best offer, right? Like, there was none of that. There was zero. All I saw in the swap meet area was the same old stuff I had seen in the 70s, it hasn't changed. And that, it clicked at that point. And wait, before you even go any further, a lot of you guys are right here saying, well, that's because the new generation doesn't care about, the old cars. They only want to buy this new stuff. You were wrong. You're dead wrong. There were as many gray hairs in the new car area as there were in the swap meet. There was middle age and older A lot of people. Yeah, there were guys in their 20s and 30s, but for the most part, it was people in their 50s or thereabouts who can really afford these cars. In the swap meet area, we kept having guys that were in their late teens and 20s. Uncle Tony, right, coming over to us. There were a lot of young guys looking for parts for these old cars, you know, and trying to piece their projects together. It is not a generational thing. It's not that these young guys aren't interested in the old cars or interested in hopping up cars. It's a cultural difference. The people who are attracted to the new cars today, they mod them, you know, they buy, you know, whatever it happens to be, you know, simple bolt-on things to, you know, like you know, air cleaners and you know, superchargers, you know, right on down the line, right? They buy all of this stuff and they put it in the car. They put headers in, exhaust systems, but they don't do the scrounge thing. They don't look to build a car, right? They look to modify the car. They don't want to get too deeply into it. And this is in contrast to what I remember from the classic era, because yeah, there were still like relatively new cars at the time, but people were still ripping them completely apart and doing all sorts of things to them. You know, they had their darts, their 6-cylinder darts, and they were putting 440s in them, or you know, they had their B body. They want to build a max wedge or a 6-pack for it, and they were there. You know, that hasn't changed with the older era cars, but the new cars appear to be so intimidating to the average person that they don't, you know, and they are intimidating. You know, their stuff is packed in there. You know, they're not a happy thing to work on, right? So you don't have that same gonna build it, gonna hot rod it, gonna make a car that's like uniquely my own. You know, from the dirty side out. The new car guys just aren't the same. You know, I wish they were the same. I wish I could get stoked about what goes on, but you know, I just don't have it in me. There are people who straddle both lines, and they're few and far between. And actually, you know, I think I'm going to plug a friend of mine's channel right now, because I spent some time with him over the weekend, and he's one of those people that actually straddles in between. Evan Smith. I've known him since he worked the water box in Englishtown back in the early 80s, and he went to work for Muscle Mustang and fast forward, became a very accomplished automotive journalist, and he has a channel where he does a little bit of both. He does some of the old stuff, and he does a lot of the new stuff. When I talked to him the other day, he had just finished flogging on some kind of Lamborghini, you know. So you might want to check out Evan's channel. He's you know, he's a good guy. But anyway, that's it. That's the big cultural difference. You know, people who are attracted to the older cars, to the classics, are definitely more of they're more, whether they're restoring them or they're hot rodding them or they're just, you know, building a you know, just a resto mod type of deal. It doesn't make any difference. They're more they've got dirty fingernails, you know what I mean? And they're scrounging for parts. They're going to these swap meets and they're scrounging for parts. And the newer guys, they're ordering stuff off the catalog. They're bolting it on the car, or they're bringing it to a shop and having it done. And you know, there's nothing wrong with it. You know, enjoy the hobby at whatever level it is that suits you. But if you want to know what the big difference is between old muscle and new muscle, that's it. You know, old muscle is much more hands-on, much more involved. New muscle is more of a recreational activity. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. I'll see you tomorrow.